is not. I don't think he's going to be fantasy relevant with there.
Fantasy relevant at all?
Now that I know the name value, I am going to pick the other running back.
Ladies and gentlemen, Fourth and Trollers, welcome back to Fourth and Troll Fantasy, the most entertaining fantasy football podcast on the entire planet. My name is Noah Selby.
I'm Wes Selby.
That's Wes. We're back. We got a great episode for you guys today. Blind resumes. Stay tuned because you are going to witness me convincing Wes that he is going to be so wrong on his favorite player in this year's draft. And I'm so excited about it. It's going to be a great time. Wes,
yes.
How you doing?
I'm good. You know, this might be team mine, but I don't usually shower before recording because we usually record much later in the day. Today we're able to record earlier. I feel so clean and so fresh. I feel like I'm much more cognizant. I'm ready to analyze all of these resumes you've given me. I'm very excited. How are you doing?
I'm great. I'm super excited for this episode because this is something that when we were racking brains in the off season about, hey, what's some off season content we want to put out. We had this idea of blind resumes, and I said, "Can I do this? Can I just take this?" And you went, "Yes, please." And so I'm just excited. Yeah. I've got a lot of players here that we're going to talk about, look at them. I'm going to have you tell me what you feel about kind of where we're at here, and then I'm going to reveal these players to you. It's going to be a fun time. Before we do all that, make sure you're following us on all our socials. They're going to be linked down below. We're giving away a James Cook jersey, signed James Cook jersey this season. It's going to be a blast. If you want to go ahead and get a chance to win that, you got to join our Patreon. You also get access to our Discord community with our weekly rankings for each position this season. The first time we're ever doing that and putting that out. But make sure you go ahead and jump in there into our Trollers League Challenger tier. It's all going to be linked below. And jump on in. We're going to have a blast. It's going to be a good time. Like, subscribe, ring the bell. Do I got to rip a burp and I can't decide if I want to mute my mic or if I just want to just let it
rip, dude. Go for it.
Oh, wow. That was so
that was such a disdisappointment. You cannot hype that up anymore. And it was like a fly went by the microphone.
It felt so good. It felt like it would be such a good one. And
Gosh.
Okay, all right. Listen. Let's jump into these blind resumes.
Not easy.
Listen, so here's how it's going to go. I said it already a little bit. I got a couple different players here. Some player A's, player B's, maybe even some player C's here. You never know. There might be a triple blind resume here. And I'm going to pitch some information about these guys. And Wes is going to tell me who he would rather have, what things sound like. And then I'm going to reveal them. And it's just going to be a fun time. We're going to have a blast. You might change your mind. I might change Wes's mind. It's going to be some surprising stuff, maybe. And just some context, just some things to think about going into this fantasy football season. So let me start out. We've got 4 positions that we pay attention to in fantasy football: quarterback, running back, wide receiver, and tight end. I've got 2 sets of quarterback resumes. I've got 3 sets of running back resumes, 3 sets of wide receiver resumes, and 2 sets of tight end resumes. Let's jump into it position by position. First set, Wes. We've got player A. Player A, pretty good. Scored 21.1 fantasy points per game. Whew. Beauty. Good old time there.
Are you going to preface the position, or is that also blind?
This is quarterbacks. So we're going to go. Okay. This is quarterbacks. Okay. So we're going to go in order here. So player A, 21.1 fantasy points per game.
Doable.
Player B, 23.9 fantasy points per game.
Okay.
We're going to start out simple here, Wes. That's all I'm going to give you. That's all I'm going to give you is just those 2. That's all I'm giving you right now is those two pieces of information. Let me know what you think.
Okay. Well, let me walk through this with our listeners and our audience just to clarify. I'm not really trying to predict who these players are. I see this as an opportunity to look more deeply at the actual fantasy football production over the name value. That's what I'm going to do. And I encourage our listeners to do the same. So obviously I'm going to choose player B because they score more points a game.
Absolutely. Right. That sounds perfect. So player A, the rejected player here was 2023 NFL MVP Lamar Jackson.
Okay.
It was a QB4 last season. And player B is 2020 Kyler Murray with a full season with DeAndre Hopkins. 2023 MVP Lamar Jackson is going as the quarterback 3 in fantasy drafts right now, while Kyler Murray is going as the quarterback 9, nearly 5 rounds later. Listen, I've not hidden any secrets here about my love for Kyler Murray this season. I hope this provides some context here because, dude, even the second half of 2023 when Kyler returned, we were looking at him going, okay, this guy is like he's off the ACL and he's throwing to peasants who the Cardinals found outside the stadium. Like, sorry, Greg Dortch, right. But what is going on here? You're not Marvin Harrison Jr. You're not even Zay Jones, and you're definitely not Trey McBride. And then you add another high-powered back like Trey Benson to the offense. Player B, Kyler Murray, man, he might be an undervalued player going into this season. I'm itching for a little bit of Kyler Murray shares this year in fantasy football, man. It's exciting.
I'm not surprised. By this. And you and I are both the people that like drafting a quarterbacks later on because you have to be absolutely certain. We've talked about it, not to take too much time to the next resumes you're going to pitch here, but we've talked about it. If you don't have a quarterback with rushing upside, they're going to need to throw 4,500 yards and 40 touchdowns. And if you have two players that can pretty much do the same thing, but one's third round and one's, I don't know, maybe like 10th round, Kyler Murray, maybe 9th, 8th. Yeah.
He's around there.
Guy. Now take to the guy that's cheaper value and can probably do the same production. Kyler Murray, I believe it. I believe it 100% he can be as good as Lamar.
Absolutely. Next set. Ready, Wes? Here we go.
Yeah.
Player A. Again, we're still in quarterbacks. Player A in 2023 had 318.5 fantasy points. Just 2 weeks as a top 8 quarterback, though. Player B, 306.6 fantasy points in 2023, but 6 weeks as a top 8 quarterback. And player C, in 2023, 301 fantasy points, 5 weeks as a top 8 quarterback. What do you think, Wes? Player A, player B, or player C here?
It sounds like player B with the second most points scored and not that far behind player A, who scored the most, was a more consistent quarterback. And more consistently in the top 8. Is that what you stated?
That is what I shared with you. Yeah. So player A had 318, we'll round up 319 points, but 2 weeks as a top 8 quarterback.
That's it.
And player B had 307 with 6 weeks as a top 8 quarterback. Player C, 301 fantasy points, just 6 points behind player B with 5 weeks as a top 8 quarterback. Where are we at here?
I'm going to go with player B because it sounds like that player A likely got where they were from a couple. Those 2 weeks in top 8 were massive weeks. That's what it sounds like for the resume. So I'm going to go with player B over player C because it won less week in the top 8.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely understandable. So here we go. The specific set, one of these players did not play the entire season. They missed a couple of games. So I definitely went ahead and calculated that and expanded it out to a 17-game pace. So let's start from here. Player B that you picked was Brock Purdy in 2023. 306.6 fantasy points, 6 weeks as a top 8 quarterback, was the QB7 last year.
Let's go.
Player C, who I think we might have chosen second in this list. Would that be fair to say? Just a little bit behind, but still more consistent. Jared Goff in 2023. Just 301 fantasy points in 5 weeks as a top 8 quarterback. And player A, Mr. CJ Stroud in 2023, 318 fantasy points on a 17-game pace there. He missed a couple. Just 2 weeks as a top 8 quarterback in 2023. And And CJ Stroud's going as the QB5 this season so far.
Right.
Brock Purdy going as the QB12, and Jared Goff going as the QB14.
Yes.
We've kind of hinted at it throughout the season, but it is just another piece of information to look at. Look at the numbers, remove the name value. Going 7 quarterback spots later is Brock Purdy, who is more consistent. All 3 of these guys have such high-powered offenses, and they're you can get them at drastically different prices here, man. The 5 different quarterbacks here. A lot to think about as we go into the 2024 fantasy season. I'm excited. Yeah. Let's jump into running backs here. I'm excited for these guys. It's going to be a fun time here. Player A, similar to the first set of quarterbacks, Wes, 258 fantasy points in 2023. Player B, 237 fantasy points in 2023.
Okay.
One of them was the RB7 last year. The other one was the RB11 last year. What do you think, Wes? Player A, player B, going into 2024?
I'm going to just roll with player A. I think I know who player B is. Give it
a shot. Who do you think player B is?
Is player B Bijan Robinson?
Not close. Very close. Bijan Robinson, I believe, was the RB10 last year. Here we go. Player B was Josh Jacobs on a 17 game pace there, because he did miss a lot of the season. Missed a good chunk of this season towards the end of it, but on a 17 game pace, Josh Jacobs in 2023 was the RB11, scored 237 fantasy points. Player A, his predecessor, Zamir White, 258 fantasy points on a 17 game pace last season.
You're sneaky.
Good for the RB7 last year. Josh Jacobs, hot new offense here, Green Bay, going as the RB9 in drafts right now, while Zamir White sticking it with him with Antonio Pierce and a high volume run offense, going as the RB26 in fantasy football drafts this season. Dude, what are we doing here? What are we doing? This is insane. How is it not clear? I don't understand how people are looking at Zamir White and going, I don't know. He's just kind of there. The dude was a volume monster last season when Josh Jacobs went down. Those last 4 games, he almost single-handedly beat the Chiefs twice. Like, what? What are we doing here? Zamir White's the truth.
Here, and I took him in our mock draft, and I believe he's a starting running back for an NFL team, and I think that has so much value alone. I think the reason he has fallen and people are doubting him is because, ironically enough, the other running back in his backfield burned so many people last year when he took over, and that was Alexander Mattison. As soon as Dalvin Cook left, we said, Madison has the upside. He's going to be great. I bought into it as well. I was like, this guy's an opportunity to be amazing. And he was awful. And I think people are burned by it, and that's why Zamir White is falling. However, I'm with you. I think Zamir White is clearly a top 20 running back, but we need to kind of figure out, is he top 15? Did he sneak his way into what you would say on a 17-game pace? He's top 10. The rest of the offseason to determine that, but very
we got
fun
a lot of time
information.
To think about it. Yeah, a couple of Vegas guys there we're talking about. Next set here, similar to the previous one. Player A, 226 fantasy points on a 17-game pace, was the RB13 last year. And player B, 252 fantasy points on a 17-game pace, was the RB8 last year. Will be good for that. What do you think, Wes? Going into 2024, it's pretty easy, right? Pretty simple.
What did you say the RBA finished at? What rank?
Yeah, so player A finishes the RB13 last year on a 17-game pace. That's a lot of
points to still be RB13. That's amazing.
Yeah.
Well, obviously RB B.
Yeah. So player B,
more points, higher.
Yeah. Okay. So player A was Kenneth Walker III, coming in 2024. 3rd-year running back, exciting guy. We really like him. Really enjoy it. We're worried about Charbonnet. He's still the guy. Definitely in Seattle, so it seems. He's going as the RB16 right now in drafts, while player B is going as the RB20, and that is David Montgomery, who would have been the RB8 last year on a 17-game pace. I mean, I know Jahmyr Gibbs is going to take a step forward, but we've heard already this offseason their GM say, Jahmyr, we expect to see him take a step forward in year 2, but now David's definitely still going to be very involved, still a guy on this high testosterone offense where they like running the football. Dude, David Montgomery is going as the RB20 right now, and he was legit a RB1 when he played last season. Took us all by surprise. What do you think, though, Wes? I think I'm still, you know me, I love value. So when I'm looking at these two guys and going, who am I probably more likely to draft? I think it's going to be David Montgomery.
I disagree. With the context of knowing the name, David Montgomery is not, I don't think he's going to be fantasy relevant with Jahmyr Gibbs there. What it does is it helps me know.
Fantasy relevant?
I think it's the same as I think it's a GM politeness to say like Montgomery's still going to be part of the team. But like, are you going to take Raheem Mostert? Are you just going to take Raheem Mostert because he's part of a high-powered offense and is still going to be involved?
No, because Raheem Mostert scored more touchdowns last year than he had in his entire career. We've seen David Montgomery be effective behind a stinky, poopy diaper butt Chicago Bears offensive line for his whole career. And then he got a great offensive line. He was an RB1.
And I think that is exactly the same case with Raheem Mostert. And now both Mostert and Montgomery have a second-year running back going to take leap up. And it's funny because plain and simple, you give the numbers and it's like, yeah, Montgomery was really great the first few weeks. We were complaining early last season, like, where is Jahmyr Gibbs fitting his offense? He's getting like 30% of the snap count, and it increased, and Jahmyr Gibbs was top 10 when he finally had his opportunity. That carries over. I retract my statement. Now that I know the name value, I am going to pick the other running back.
Wow, that is a lot, man.
Much rather have Kenneth Walker than David Montgomery.
Wow.
I'd rather have, I think, maybe 20 running backs over David Montgomery because he's not the starter.
I don't know. I mean, I don't know if I'd fully disagree about not rather having 20 guys over David Montgomery, but I think there's still usable value there. There's still, I know we all shoot for the upside, but I think there's still usable value in having a RB back end RB2 kind of guy. And I think I just look at the price. I go, you can get Kenneth Walker the third, or a few rounds later, you could take David Montgomery. That's tough though. This is something for everybody to pay attention to here. It's going to be fun.
You can let us know in the comments if that persuaded you, because without the name value, would you still take that running back and then you put in the name value? Trollers, are you interested in David Montgomery knowing that at a 17-game pace, he would be top 10? Let us know in the comments, because that is up for debate here.
We'll see. Player A here on this last one, 221 carries, 1,241 yards, 5.6 yards per carry, and 17 touchdowns. And player B, 235 carries, 907 yards, 3.8 yards per carry, and 8 touchdowns. I mean, this has got to be a no-brainer, right?
Almost. How many games did player B play?
This is a 17-game pace for both of these guys.
Pace. I still want to know, how many games did player B play?
These stats are statted out to be 17 games based on how they played last year. This is 17 games for each of these guys.
Because I saw Joe Mixon get 5 touchdowns in one game. So I just wanted to know.
Yeah.
Before that, Mixon would have had like a touchdown rate of like 3 anyway.
Yeah.
Well, okay. So player A has the better stats, better everything. I'll go with player A.
Yeah. So player A is now going to be second-year running back Kendre Miller, the backup to Alvin Kamara over in New Orleans on a 17-game pace last season, 221 carries, 1,241 yards, run at 5.6 yards per carry, very efficient, and 17 touchdowns. And player B, is Alvin Kamara on a 17-game pace in 2023. 235 carries, 907 yards, 3.8 yards per carry, and only 8 touchdowns. Just having a little fun here. I think obviously we would all still take Alvin Kamara over Kendre Miller, but it's fun to think about and look at. Dang, they got a young stud of a running back here. He might see some more opportunity. He might see some more opportunity. He may sneak into flex consideration depending on how this backfield plays out. If it's more of a split than we think, and he takes more of the rushing work. I purposefully didn't put, the receiving work, because obviously Alvin Kamara would just wipe the floor with him here. It was incredible.
Yeah, you're
Alvin
sneaky. That's what I was asking. How many games did player B play?
Yeah,
you didn't tell me because he was suspended.
Yeah,
it's interesting because Kamara will at some point leave New Orleans. Either he retires or ends up getting traded, free agent, whatever it is. But also that does actually influence me to consider Kendre Miller as a good handcuff for the Saints.
Yeah, they love this guy.
Great upside. Yeah,
they love him. All the beat reporters are saying great things out of camp, so they love this guy. Let's jump to wide receivers here. Let's have some fun.
Oh, yes.
Okay. Player A in 2023, 175 targets, 103 catches, 1,144 yards, and 8 touchdowns. Player B, 136 targets, 79 catches, 1,255 yards, so more yardage, and 13 touchdowns as opposed to the 8 touchdowns here.
Ooh.
Where are we at here with player A and player B? Start out our wide receivers, Wes.
That's a good one, because I guess you have to determine subjectively what do you value. Well, it doesn't have to exactly be subjectively, but what do you value more, PPR or touchdown rate? And I guess that is the question. Would you rather have someone that is going to get 7 catches a game, or are you going for the touchdown upside? Touchdowns are huge, and 70 catches is still
79, almost 80.
79. Yeah. So 80 catches compared to 103. Now that is a 20-point difference, but over the course of 17 games, that's barely a point. So I'm going to go with the touchdowns and the yards. Player B.
So you're taking player B. I love it. So player A, elite machine, Mr. Davante Adams of the Las Vegas Raiders, player A. And player B, Mike Evans of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. We've got Davante Adams is still going as the wide receiver 10 in fantasy drafts right now. Listen, he's elite. He is truly. But with Gardner Minshew, they add Brock Bowers. I don't know. I don't know if I take him there. Versus you can get Mike Evans at the wide receiver 17 in drafts right now, going 7 slots later. That feels like easy money to me, taking Mike Evans over Davante Adams. It's a full round difference. You don't have to pay up. You can get somebody else in an earlier round and then later end up taking Mike Evans. It's fantastic. It feels like an easy no-brainer to me.
If you give me the choice between Davante Adams and Mike Evans, and you were to just say the name value, I would still choose Mike Evans. You didn't even need to tell me the stats. I don't buy into Davante Adams this year.
It's wild. Yeah.
I'm going to need some heavy persuasion to consider him even in my top 10 when we do our rankings, because right now, I don't even know if he makes top 15. I may out of respect, I may consider him top 15, but Mike Evans is the better wide receiver to take in this season. I believe it.
Absolutely. I agree. Let's move on here. Next set of wide receivers. This one's going to be fun. Player A.
Very fun.
Player A scored 12.5 fantasy points per game in 2023.
Oh.
Player B scored 14.1 fantasy points per game in 2023. Now, again, this is just averages. Here's the thing with player A. Player A has 36% of the targets in his offense being vacated going into 2024. Wide open opportunity here.
Oh, okay.
Player B, 0% of targets vacated going into 2024. In fact, this offense may have just added a bunch of people too, and they didn't get rid of anyone as far as competition for this player. Player A or player B here, Wes?
So just to recap, player A had fewer points per game.
Right.
But now one of the other pass catchers on the team is gone. And that means that 36% of those opportunities are of the total opportunities are available now for that player to have more points per game.
Yeah.
Player B, nothing changed, and they were scoring more points per game.
Right.
I'm going with player B because I know what I have with player B, and I like that. I'm not sure if 36% or even a fraction of that where it's all going to go. So I'm going to go with player B because I know what I have.
Great. So, Wes, when you pick player B, you're taking DK Metcalf. Metcalf going as the wide receiver 24 off the board. Pretty good value there. When you take player A, you take Christian Kirk in this Jaguars offense with the departure of Calvin Ridley, with the departure of Zay Jones, going as the wide receiver 33 in drafts. I really like this one because honestly, I think I like both options. It feels really even to me. I like Kirk at the value. I like DK there as well, just because I think he's got a skill level higher. But I remember when Christian Kirk signed with the Jaguars, and we all were like, what the hell are the Jaguars doing paying this guy, like resetting the wide receiver market on Christian Kirk? And he hasn't been able to stay fully healthy, but man, he's been really good when he's on the field. And I think we forget about that. At wide receiver 24 and wide receiver 33, screw it. I might take both of these guys at this point. I might grab both of them in drafts because I think there is a good case for both of them here. Yeah.
Kirk was, especially the first quarter of last season, was like wide receiver 2 or something stupid. He was incredible at the start. And then and it was very apparent that Calvin Ridley was not, Calvin Ridley had an awesome week 1, and it was like victory laps. He's back. He's going exactly where we want him to be. And then nothing happened to Ridley.
Yeah.
Christian Kirk is a great value because of the circumstances alone. But then when you add those numbers that you just gave, it reminds us what he can do.
Absolutely.
I'm re-sold. You've re-inspired me to try to grab Christian Kirk later in my drafts.
Good. I'm glad. Last one here with the wide receivers. We got player A. In 2023, 160 targets, 107 catches, 1,183 yards, and 8 touchdowns. That's 274 fantasy points.
That's a
player B. 123 targets, 91 catches, 1,470 yards, and 9 touchdowns, 296 fantasy points.
Wow.
And player C. In 2023, 116 targets, 73 catches, 1,100 yards, and 11 touchdowns. 255 fantasy points there for player C. What do we think, Wes? Player A, player B, or player C?
So here's what I'm determining from each of these players, okay? Player A, the quarterback loves throwing to this guy. 170 targets. That is insane.
160,
is that correct? 160 targets. That is a lot. Clearly a massive piece of that offense. 50 some odd targets were not completed. So the opportunity is still there, but it says a lot about how much their quarterback loves throwing to them. Player B has an incredible catch rate. I mean, like only 30 something targets not caught, and then 120 targets, something like that. That's awesome. That is awesome. I love that. That's really good and great yards. So I'm very intrigued. And then player C just sounds like another good option.
So another good option. Less catches, less yards, more touchdowns than both of the first 2 guys. So
but that's a little bit more of a risk because it does feel more touchdown dependent. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go with a guy that had just about the same amount of targets as player B, but as the same amount of catches as player B, but so many more targets. I'm going to go with a guy that has an insane amount of targets. Player A.
Okay, that's great to hear. Well, Wes, player A is Stephon Diggs with 160 targets, 107 catches. He was the wide receiver 9 last year, currently going as the wide receiver 14.
Well,
Player B.
All right.
Is his new teammate, Nico Collins, 123 targets, 91 catches. He was a wide receiver 5 last year on that 17-game pace in 2023. He missed 2 games. So I made sure all these guys were even. And these are 17-game stats calculated out. And player C, their other teammate in the wide receiver room, Mr. Tank Dell, there as the wide receiver 13 last year. So Stefon Diggs last year, the wide receiver 9. His quarterback loved throwing him the football. Maybe he was open enough to get thrown the football. Nico Collins, the wide receiver 5, and maybe that deep threat target there in Houston. And then Tank Dell again on that 17-game pace, the wide receiver 13. All these guys statted out for 17 games based off their stats per game last year. Except for Stefon Diggs is going as the wide receiver 14. Nico Collins going as the wide receiver 15 right now. A little bit of fluctuation we've seen here in that ADP. Nico Collins was going ahead of him. And then Tank Dell going as the wide receiver 26. I don't know if there's a major point to be made here. I just wanted to see where we would land at if we throw all these wide receivers from this room into this situation and go, man, where do we land at? What's this going to be like? What's this going to look like? What's this going to be? It's an exciting wide receiver room.
I'll tell you the major point. The major point is Stefon Diggs is overvalued because how can he have 60 targets with a new quarterback when he's already throwing 100+ targets to one wide receiver and the other one's coming off an injury that has more touchdowns? That's my takeaway. Stefon Diggs is overvalued.
Exactly.
Which is something we've already talked about. We're kind of scared of all the Texans wide receivers, and I like the point you've made is deferring to the more affordable option. That's Tank Dell, and you talked about CJ Stroud picking him in his all offense team. But this is someone is going to take the chance on a Texans wide receiver, and they're going to strike gold.
Yeah,
but I don't even. Maybe it's gold. It might be silver at best, but I'm worried about all of them because I can't count on them week to week.
Maybe it's copper. Who knows?
Maybe it's copper. Yeah, it could be. Striking opaz or topaz.
Yeah.
Opal, whatever it is. Alrighty.
Let's jump into tight ends here.
The Texans.
That was a fun one. We got just a couple quick ones here with tight end. Player A in 2023, 137 targets, 105 catches, just over 1,100 yards and 5 touchdowns. Player B, 143 targets, 114 catches, 963 yards and 4 touchdowns. Pretty similar there, Wes. What do we think? Similar output, similar, stats. What do we think of these two guys?
Tight ends for me are touchdown dependent, and the touchdown volume is so much more important, I think, because of the fewer yards they will get. I'm going to go with tight end A because they scored one more touchdown.
One more touchdown. Yeah, you love it. There you go. Player A, Travis Kelce. We know him. We love him. Great guy there. Last year's tight end 3, going as the tight end 2 in drafts right now. Player B, Evan Ingram, a guy that we actually really like, Wes, a guy we really like. Yeah. He's had a good chance there. Last year's tight end 2, except for he's going right now as the tight end 8 in this offense that I just talked about with Christian Kirk that has 36% of its opportunities vacated. Yeah, I like the opportunity for Christian Kirk, but hey, maybe there's something here with Evan Ingram we need to be paying more attention to. Maybe he is going to be the value at tight end. Maybe he has a chance to be the late round tight end that we all wait on and see, and then we take, and he's going to come back and be great for us because we've seen him do it before. Love some Evan Ingram. Love some situation there with him. So it's a lot of fun there to talk about those two guys. Last one. Last blind resume. Player A, 131 targets, 86 catches, 937 yards, and 6 touchdowns. Player B, 120 targets, 86 catches, 889 yards, 10 touchdowns. What do we think here between these two guys, Wes?
Oh, man. Touchdowns. I love touchdowns for a tight end. I think I'm gonna go with tight end B because the touchdown.
I thought I was gonna get you. I thought I was gonna get you, man.
Red zone opportunity.
is Sam Laporta.
Yes.
120 targets. Last year's tight end 1, currently going as the tight end 1. Here's the point I want to make here with this, though. Player A is David Njoku, a guy I really like. I'm really excited about. Yeah. More yards, same amount of catches, more targets. Last year's tight end 5, going as the tight end 10. 7 rounds later. There's value here with these tight ends if that hasn't taught you anything from these last 2 blind resumes. It's just that, listen, the studs are the studs, the guys are the guys, but there is value here, so it seems this year. And to me, Wes, it feels like more than ever the tight end position has depth again this season, is what it feels like. It feels like there are guys that can be really solid players in your lineup. And you can be getting them if you want to reach. You can, if you don't, not even reach. If you want to take your studs where your studs are at, take your studs. But there's also these guys you can wait on as well. So don't feel like you have to go ahead and go big or go home in that position there. That's it. Blind Great resumes. Job. Stevie Wonder. There you go. Get it?
What a way to close out this show. Just by the way. I get it. I get it. Yeah.
Maybe not. Dude, there's conspiracy theorists who are
talk about him?
Yes.
Oh my gosh.
There are conspiracy theorists that are like, Stevie Wonder, not blind. No way. 0 chance. It's like, okay, well, hang on. What are we doing here? Listen. Crazy stuff. Listen, that's the blind resumes. Let us know, did any of these change your mind? Are you more or less likely now to grab one of these players later? Are you still reaching and taking your guy where they're at? Or are you going to find some value somewhere else? This is fun. I enjoyed this. Awesome. I enjoyed blind resumes. I'm glad we decided to do it this offseason. It's a good time. I know biggest takeaway for me, dude, Zamir White to the moon, and Kendre Miller is going to be the RB5. There you go. That's it. Boom. Okay. Done and dusted. 17 touchdowns. Kendre Miller is the next Derrick Henry.
Okay. We'll talk about that.
Listen, make sure you're following us on our socials. Again, they're linked down below. Join us on our Patreon. Win a signed James Cook jersey. Jump into our Discord. It's going to be a blast. We'll sketch you we'll sketch you next time. We'll catch you next time.
I'll sketch a picture of you next time.
Yeah. Listen, we will catch you next time. My name is Noah Selby.
And I'm Wes Selby.
And this has been 4th and Troll Fantasy. 4th and Troll Fantasy is a production of FQ Media Group and Selby Artistic Workshop.